Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. And many of you were here this morning for our Sunday gathering, which was our first event, but this is our commencement, our kickoff. So welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to the Mystical Feast. This is our third annual ICN gathering, and we're so glad you're here. We have a whole week ahead, a feast of offerings and gatherings for transforming through our dedicated mystical practice. So some of these things may be new to you, some may be familiar. You're welcome to try any of the feastful delights that look interesting to you. And also, I want to encourage you to be a little adventurous with the feast as well, not just going for the convenient or the known delights and the familiar, but maybe try some things that might be outside of your comfort zone even. As I tell my children often at the dinner table, we try new things because they might taste good. So in the past, we've had our annual gathering concentrated over a weekend. Spreading it out over the whole week allows for us to accommodate more time zones across our global community, and as well not to have too much Zoom on any one given day, like happens when you have a weekend retreat. So there's still some days with a lot of things happening, and if you come to everything, and I guess even if you don't, we encourage you to, when you're not on the screen, get outside, get away from screens when you're not participating in the gatherings. We'll also be participating in whole body mystical presencing throughout the week. Which, if you read the recent series about that, it's a practice to enter the everyday reality of Christ consciousness, any moment to moment, permeating with divine spirit. So God is here in our midst, within us and among us at all times, not just when we're gathering on the Zoom screen, of course. So we can practice that kind of like that bowl of M&Ms that's just sitting on the counter. You can just grab one anytime you walk by, or I don't know, maybe for some of you health nuts, it's peanuts or something else. I actually don't like M&Ms, but yeah, there's a way to participate that in a WhatsApp group chat. So if you got the link for that, I sent out text messages or emails to folks if you put in your number, but you can also find that if you want to be a part of that, just let me know. It's to aid us in our collective presencing. So there'll just be a couple little messages I'll send out throughout the week. Tune into your heart, tune into the field, and then others can also contribute to that as well. So yeah, you can also do it without the aid of technology if you like, but if you want, there's the WhatsApp group chat to help in as well. So if you're not on that already, just send me an email if you haven't gotten a link for that already, and I'll get you connected to how to join that. So all right, as we begin here, I'm going to be the head chef for a moment here, a little bit, telling you about the menu and the delicacies that have been prepared for you to feast on throughout the week. I want to share a few highlights. Of course, every event is special and beneficial, but there's a few words about some of the things on the schedule that you might need to do a little advanced preparations for, or might be a little newer or unfamiliar. So first of all, tomorrow and Friday, we have something called the Community Collective Emergence Practice. That's 3:30 Central tomorrow, Friday at 11 a.m. And these are open space type gatherings. So we come together and there's a central question of just what's alive, what's here, what do we want to talk about? And we organize rooms around that. It's really alive and dynamic. And it opens up to being responsive to spirit and emergent possibilities coming forth in our midst. So we'll have one kind of at the beginning of the week and at the end of the week. Come join those. Oh, as I mentioned that, the easiest way to keep track of the schedule, if you're having trouble with that, there's a web page that has all the Zoom links embedded. So most everything is on this link, which you can use most all the time, but there are a few things like the Sunday gathering, a couple other spaces. So you can just use that web page that has the Zoom schedule. Again, if you need help finding something, if you're confused, just send an email and let us know. Another event is the Pop-Up Mystic Art Gallery on Tuesday at noon Central. And this is a favorite from the last two annual gatherings. What it is everyone's invited to bring one piece of artwork that they would like to share, something that's really meaningful to them or special. It can be a painting, poetry, music, singing, whatever you want to bring. And we just kind of have a collective space of sharing those. So if you want to participate in that, do a little preparation beforehand to, choose the thing that you want to bring. Or if you just want to show up and see what everyone else brings, you can do that as well. But we really want you to participate in it and bring something of your own as well. I think Tony might be doing stand-up comedy this year. No, I don't know if that's happening. But she joked about that in years past, so we'll see. One other thing that I want to highlight is the Divine Feminine Storytelling Circle on Thursday. Throughout this year, there's been a group in our community that's been meeting to vision with what's emerging in our community. And what's come forth is a very strong and clear message that ICN embraces and celebrates the divine feminine. So we're going to gather on Thursday to share stories of encounter and experience in that with the divine feminine, the Great Mother, and many of our other names and forms. So bring your own story if you like. And I want to especially emphasize that this is for men just as much as it is for women. Just because it's a divine feminine thing doesn't mean that that's just for women. We need the men. We all need to engage and experience in this, men just as much as women, and everyone needs to engage with this. So if you can make it, then we'd love to have you there. A few logistical notes about the upcoming week. If you got an earlier schedule more than a few days ago, just note the time of the Fellowship of John the Beloved on Friday was listed as 4 o'clock. It's actually at 3:30 Central. So make sure you check the updated schedule for that. The Sunday gathering next week is at 10 a.m., not 10 p.m., of course. That was a typo on an earlier document as well. And then with many of these events, our Zoom rooms won't close immediately afterwards. So like the scheduled time ends, the thing that we're doing ends, but we're going to leave a little spaciousness to hang out and talk and share with one another. When you go to an in-person gathering, some of the best things that happen are the in-between times. So when we're online, it's a little harder to recreate those, but we want to do that by just leaving some space open afterwards for questions or, talking to one another, whatever that might look like to connect. Same thing for this session today. It's scheduled for an hour, but we might go a little longer, leave some space for questions and hanging out. But if you need to leave at the hour mark, you can do that, of course. Okay, I think that's all the logistical things. And I'll say one more thing, that one major problem with this metaphor of a feast is that we are not just the eaters, the partakers, but we are also the fruit. We help make the substance of whatever we are participating in and engaging with in the practice that we come to. So we're not just consumers. We are all co-creators of this mystical field of love, spirit, and becoming. We're making the feast as we're partaking in it. So I invite you to show up hungry, but also with the sense of being an active, contributing energy and presence to the space and practice of which you're a part. We're all bringing something into the shared space, to the energy field, to the collective presence. And that's a spiritual and mystical practice in and of itself. Dawn, did you have a question or raise your hand?
I just wondered if all the sessions are going to be recorded.
Pretty much all the sessions will be recorded, yes. The Better Know a Mystic, if we're in breakout groups a lot, they won't be recorded because breakout groups don't get recorded, but most everything will be. So yeah, that's some people will be participating that way with time zones and such. Okay. Any other questions as we get started? We'll have more time for questions at the end too. But so, okay, with that, to start this week of feasting, we want to begin by saying a few words about the restaurant, so to speak. I promise I won't overstretch that metaphor too much any further, but we want to begin this third annual gathering with something of a state of our communion address. I don't expect you all to stand and clap after every sentence, but we want to make a little space to share more about the vision and purpose of ICN, and how we're living into this mystical calling to embody Christ today. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul for a few minutes, and then I'll share more after him.
Well, welcome. And this is a great time. And I want to briefly, in about 5 minutes, share with you what has come to me about this occasion. We humans need a purpose. a sense of unique contribution and meaning. Purpose keeps us motivated, inspired, less checked out and tuned out. It breathes life into what may feel like a lifeless existence. When we are clear on our purpose at this moment, in this day, in this life, on this planet, the anxiety lessens, the fear subsides, and we live more fully. According to governmental research, only 21% of adults strongly agree that their life has a clear purpose. That's not a lot. Having purpose and meaning in our life is connected to happiness, satisfaction, physical health, and self-esteem. Jesus gave us an incredibly big-time purpose and meaning to his followers. He said to them 2,000 years ago, and to us today, "Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation." Now, for those of you from evangelical backgrounds, that's that you're a sinner, you need to, all that sort of stuff. But that's not what that was about. I'm going to talk about what it's about. Jesus also said he had more to teach us 2,000 years ago, but we weren't ready for it then. And ICN has said, we are ready. So ICN is going into all the world with the more that Jesus is teaching us today. ICN purpose, to remind you, is to gather a community of dedicated mystical practitioners for the evolution of Christianity in the world. We are now in at least 24 countries around the world, as somebody from Kenya this morning knew, and proclaiming the good news that an evolved Christianity is available and can transform us and the world. There are moments in history where the need for purpose gets elevated. We're in one of those times. The particulars of what this means for each person are uniquely different. At ICN, we have a shared community and practices that help us discover the gifts and ways that distinctively work for us. So what does it mean when Jesus said, proclaim the gospel? What does that mean today? Author and teacher Jessica Joines points out the very thing when she says there are three higher purposes in life. The first one is to heal. The second one is to deliver a message. The third one is to bring a revolution. These higher purposes do not necessarily dictate our career or lifestyle in making a living. Purpose is about making a life. Someone in prison can be a healer. A musician can deliver a message. An administrator can bring a revolution. There are no rules about how your higher purpose can be delivered into the world. Healing means we spread compassion, peace, health, nourishment, care for all living things, including the planet. Delivering a message is to unlock the wisdom of our spiritual journey. For integral Christians, this brings the best of the previous good news and the best of the new evolving good news into the world. Bringing a revolution, my favorite one, is about changing things, uprooting things, bringing about a new understanding and way of doing life. Jesus did all three of those things in his day. And we at ICN are doing that in our day. ICN has a healing in its community and practices. ICN has a message to deliver. The message from Jesus is about today's world, not yesterday's world. ICN is bringing a revolution and involving Christianity in the world. And we all do this personally through our spiritual gifts. As I pointed out in my current series, it's our spiritual giftings and connectings that work together to make ICN a revolutionary, transforming community. And we're still getting started in our 5 years of being together. My message today is that each of you and all of us together are doing these three things: bringing healing to the world, proclaiming the message of good news for today, and furthering the current spiritual revolution that's beginning to happen not only with us, but all around the world in evolving communities of spiritual pioneers. With enormous gratitude for each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I just want to receive that, flow in it, move with it. This is a big vision. It's not a small endeavor. And it's also not just lofty rhetoric. Our purpose will only have meaning if we are enacting to make it happen. For many in ICN, we may be unaware of the scope and extent to which we are engaging in this work and engaging in what Paul described. So I want to share with you how we are doing that in many ways throughout our community. So I'm going to share screen now to bring up some visuals of this map and many ways that we are enacting our collective purpose. So, as Paul shared before, our collective purpose at ICN is gathering a global community of dedicated mystical practitioners for the loving evolution of Christianity in the world. And before we lean into this statement a bit more, I want to say first a little bit about how we are a network community, Integral Christian Network. So sometimes people ask if ICN is a church. And we even this morning, a couple of people said, I'm here. This is my church. And that's a bit of a loaded word. It carries different connotations to many people. And in a lot of ways, I have to say that, no, we're not a church. We're a network community, which has some key distinctions. But in another sense, yes, of course, we are a church, because that word just means those who are gathered. That's the root of that we gather together as a community, as a church. So the way that people are gathering, though, for spiritual community is changing in this time. We are in the midst of a great shift, and this is a liminal transitory space. So we have a lot of folks in our community who are part of local churches, who work for churches and denominations, and we have a lot who've left the traditional church structure. Or have never been a part of it at all. So sometimes I say that ICN is post-religious Christianity. I don't know, some may find that helpful, others maybe not. But being a network community means a few things. First, that we exist as a resource and support for people's lives and local community context. So we are in relationship with other organizations, churches, and communities in active and suggestive ways, whether that be through kind of intermingling and connecting, moving between this community and others, or more intentional active collaborations and connections. So fundamentally, we're not against or oppositional to other churches or organizations. People generally belong to just one church, and it's kind of an exclusive participation, but that's not how it is in the network. Second, our community itself is a network structure made up of various nodes of expression and form, which we'll be looking at here next a bit. And it also means that we have different degrees of participation in ICN. We don't have membership because we don't define who we are by a boundary, by who's in and by who's out, but by our engaged participation in this relational field, in our energetic partaking and involvement in this evolving expression. So there are varying degrees of this is not only understandable, but welcome in the fabric of our form. Some will be very engaged there a lot. Some will be just taking part in small ways. But as a network, we don't seek to self-enclose, but integrate and commingle with the world. So this picture shows 6 areas of various functions that we operate in as our network community, and they tie directly into our purpose statement. And they break down in detail. I'm going to break it down in detail to show all that we do as an organization and a living communal organism. not in full detail, but to show in the many ways how we are as a community regularly feasting and preparing that feast. So the first part, again, of our statement is gathering a global community. And we need to gather together in this network community. Why? Because we have found that many of the traditional places that people have gone for spiritual support and community are no longer totally sufficient for how spirit is evolving and what we're being called into today. For many evolving mystical folks, we need places of belonging where we can be who we are and be with our people. So having a resonant community enriches our lives, provides lasting friendships, and even spiritual family. It allows us a safe space to be seen and to see each other more truly, calling one another into being. It provides a place to share intimate experience with God and with one another. So there are several ways that we gather regularly as a community. Weekly, we have our Sunday gathering that we just had before, and Co-Exploration is also a weekly gathering. We have Early Sabbath monthly, which is Saturday night or Sunday morning for those in the Eastern Hemisphere, or Eastern Hemisphere, yes. We also have a periodic children's gathering, and then times that we get together all as a community, like our open space format that we'll have twice this week. So you'll get to experience all of these forms this week here. And then, of course, our fundamental form of gathering happens in WeSpace groups, the central place of our intimate community and spiritual support, as well as mystical practice. So we have currently 40 WeSpace groups with around 250 participants. As Paul said, people from 24 countries, although it's all mostly English speaking at this point, though we do have a German speaking sister network that has a few different WeSpace groups. There's also a Singapore ICN that's been developing and coming forth. And then we're also engaged with Unity Worldwide Ministries, bringing WeSpace into several churches around there. That's a grant pilot program that just got approved and is just now beginning. So WeSpace is coming into Unity as well. As we talk about gatherings, of course, the line between gatherings and practice isn't a hard one. Most of our gatherings are about practice, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. So the work of gathering a global community is one that needs a lot of support. Before starting ICN, I remember wondering why there weren't more things like this online that really emphasize community. And well, I think there's a number of reasons for that. One is that community is really hard. It takes a lot of support and work on a number of levels. So all of our gatherings have teams or circles of support and care behind them. And there's other ways that we support the community at large as well. So you can see on here many of those: a WeSpace Wisdom Circle, a meeting of the guides and liaisons. The Nurturing Circle is those who care for that, who care for all of our WeSpace groups. We have the Bell Ringer Circle, who steward the Sunday gatherings. Community Care Circle, looking out for the community in ways of care. We have healing prayer times, other forms of individual and group support and member engagement. And then the ICN Body Circle, that is all of us. Everyone in the community is engaged in supporting the community just by simply being a cell of who we are and showing up and saying yes, as someone said this morning. So all of this is only possible because we are a participatory organization. And we use the term participatory. Some folks might think of it as a volunteer organization, but that has very different connotations. We use participatory because we believe that every one of us is called to actively engage in co-creating the future, like Paul said, and being a part of the spiritual work of loving evolution. So we don't have laity in our community. We're all priests and priestesses in our various ways, with different gifts and callings, some within ICN and some outside of ICN as well. Again, that network element, that this is happening in and out. So we make this happen together, and participating in the work is part of our spiritual practice. It's an invitation, an opportunity to grow and develop together. We aren't just looking for volunteers to fill slots of need. Thank goodness there's no nursery duty, at least at this point, though we could use some more help with the children's gathering. But rather, we're wanting to help facilitate our personal and collective emergence through our ways of service, care, support, and generativity. So that's that call to participatory engagement. which helps us grow and develop as well. So in WeSpace, we have 38 WeSpace guides and liaisons who help guide their groups to keep going, and over 64 total active participants actively contributing to supporting and co-creating the present and emerging life of our community. Okay, so next part of our collective purpose statement is dedicated mystical practitioners. So community is, of course, not for its sake alone, though that's extremely valuable, but we come together in community because we're dedicated to our mystical becoming. We are committed to embracing our divine participation in spiritual evolution. We're not a static community, but seek to directly and intentionally work on our becoming. The spiritual evolution and consciousness necessary to be a part of the shape of things to come does not just happen. We actively engage with our evolution and divine becoming, and we're all invited to transformation, and our inner processes and practices bring that about. So, and crucially, our mystical practice is exponentially intensified by practicing together in community. So we have lots of different forms, various forms of practice, of course, including WeSpace groups. We have different movement practices, including divine movement, which happens every month, and we'll have that twice throughout this week. The Fellowship of John the Beloved is a group of gay men in spiritual support together, which you're invited to visit and be a part of this Friday. We have several group spiritual companioning groups. There's forms of prayer activism, an Aramaic Jesus meditation, daily meditation times every morning, although this week, like I said, we have 3 groups, and Dance Divine is a new group exploring some deepening forms of whole body mystical presencing as well. So there's even a few more. We couldn't fit them all on the graphic, but we have lots of ways that if you add up all the collective practice times happening in our community, there are approximately 58 hours of dedicated mystical practice happening each week. And then in addition, all the times that people are practicing individually. One way to see that, you can't really measure it, but our various recorded meditations have been played over 21,600 times. So that's pretty cool to think about. All of this is in service to the loving evolution of Christianity and the world. We believe that this happens through the inner and collective transformation which occurs in loving, supportive community, sharing in spiritual practice together, and co-generating creative, emergent possibilities. So from the seedbed of authentic community and intentional engaged spiritual practice, we have the ability to explore and learn together in familiar ways and also in new ways. Our spiritual intimacy seeks to be generative, again, not self-enclosing or self-serving, but seeking to bring about the blooming and blossoming of our becoming, so we can share our divine fragrance with the world. Coming together in sacred enclosures of growth and discovery not only cultivates our personal evolution, but the possibility of emergence. Not what we already know, but what we're about to know together. The collective becoming from integral consciousness manifesting in our midst, co-creating the future with God's Spirit and with one another. So there are many ways that evolution comes about, and every change is a step in that direction of divine becoming, of heaven coming to earth in us and beyond us. One way we foster that, in addition to our practices, is through our wisdom offerings. So we have our weekly writings that come every Saturday, of course. We have our education courses, the ICN Education launched this year. We have our podcast, recorded meditations and videos, lots of ways that we are trying to enrich the field of wisdom. So we've had our weekly writings for 5 years now, sent to 1,200 each week, plus social media. The metrics of that are ICN website has had 200,000 visits and 330,000 page views in these 5 years. So the wisdom is being sent out and spread and engaged with lots of people. Our podcast has over 14,000 downloads. And our education program just this year has had 16 workshops and courses throughout the year. So we're engaging in wisdom, and we're also participating in fostering evolution through the vision and planning of this community. We seek to do this in a relational and responsive way, not calcifying into institutional forms and rigid structures, but dynamic and open to evolving. So that has emerged into a number of participatory circles, organizing together to support the organism, some of which we've already seen, and a couple more listed here that are directly around supporting the organization of ICN as the Finance Circle and the Seed Spreader Circle. That one is about expanding our gathering capacity, promoting and letting people know who are looking for us, letting them know about us. So in addition to those two circles, we're moving from the founding stage, evolving into the next stage of our organization, which we sometimes call the growth stage. So 4 core circles are coming together, like our 4 centers of spiritual knowing: head, heart, womb, and body, represented by the ICN board, the Founders Circle, and the Visioning Circle, and again, that whole body circle community. So from the founding heart of ICN, with Paul and myself, the vortex of spiritual energy from which we have emerged is continuing to unfold and expand, to deepen and intensify in the love and dedication we have to becoming who we truly are and who we are meant to be personally and as a community. And then we also have our organizational coordination and administration, which you may gather from all that has been shared here is fairly extensive. I won't go into this too much because it's not the most exciting stuff, but there are a large number of organizing and administrative tasks to support the community, and each categories listed here break down even further. They all have degrees of support from a number of ICNers. And there's also so much more we could do in each of these functions with more woman power, or manpower, if you prefer that term. So ICN has 1 full-time employee. The community curator or organizational director, that's me. We also have our part-time contract employees. Tony Lamata is our education coordinator, 7 course instructors. We contract a financial administrator. And our immediate and short-term needs include hiring a virtual assistant to help with the many administrative tasks and support, which we're in the early stages of doing. And in the slightly longer term, our Finance Circle and board have assessed that we really would immensely benefit from a full-time organizational coordinator. In fact, it would be critical to our success and support in our current form and future growing needs. So to take this next step will require more financial resources and support in the short and long term. Our Finance Circle and board is working on this vision and intention of how we as a community can grow to have a wider and deeper impact on our lives in this community, those still to come, and to the world at large. So if you are interested in deepening your participation in the work of this community with your time, talent, or contribution, please know that that's welcome and encouraged. We'd love to partner further and co-create together, responding to the Spirit's call to evolve today. So as we approach our 5-year anniversary on Epiphany this upcoming January, we recognize that Spirit is at work in our midst in many ways throughout this network. None of this would be possible without the extensive gifts and abilities offered by so many in our midst. I share all of this in celebration and recognition of all that has been co-created by this wonderful community. And I thank you all for being a part of this emergent evolution for these last 5 years, for this week ahead, and for the years to come. So let us gather around the table of this mystical feast. Let us celebrate and enjoy the bountiful spread. May we be filled and fulfilled, touched and transformed. May we receive the gifts from Spirit given in love and in communion. And may we bless one another with our presence and enjoy the camaraderie and connections we make throughout the week. May we be open to God appearing in all her splendor in ways great and small, that we may live, move, and have our being in divine becoming this week and always. All right, so this is our state of our communion, and I'm just glad to be able to share that with all of you. We have a little time for some question and response. If anyone has questions from things that have been shared, or we can discuss that here for the next 15-20 minutes or so, and then Paul will have a closing prayer for our time today. But yeah, now's the time where we can just discuss this, raise any questions we want, or talk about our community together.
Can you share a little bit of the timeline for you to get assistance, more assistance?
Yes, that's a good question. We have been working toward hiring an admin for quite a while, and we're working on the finances of that. We had it in the budget this year, and we didn't quite get to the amount that we needed to do to hire that, so we held off a little bit, and then learned from a couple other communities doing similar work how beneficial it has been for them to have a virtual assistant, which often comes from someone working in another country, providing administrative support that's a fair and living wage for them, but is also a little more affordable for us to be able to do. So we are right on the cusp of doing that. It's been approved. We just need to go through the hiring process. We have the job description and such. So the virtual assistant should be coming here very soon. And then the timeline for an organizational coordinator is one that we're still determining. It will largely depend on the financial support, if we're able to raise and garner the amount to come to that. But the Finance Circle is working on some campaigns, some ways of engaging with that throughout the rest of this year and into next year. So the timeline on that is a little TBD. It's that balance of having that vision and calling it forth and putting it out there, but then also having the practical logistical means to make that happen financially. So. Thanks, Gary. What else? Other questions, thoughts, considerations?
Are you looking at a full-time admin assistant, Luke?
That's a good question. I don't think we'll start full-time. We're kind of, start probably half-time, something in that, see how the workload goes and how much we can commit to that financially, and see what the cost is. There's some variables with that once we hire it. So the hope is to get to close to full-time. If we need that much, I guess is also something to still be determined, but we're going to start kind of half-time and then build out from there with what the needs are. So.
Because the thought occurs to me that other networks, other groups doing similar kinds of things that we're doing might also have part-time assistants. And maybe there's something that could be married there with another organization.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Dawn. Yeah, I know, like I said, a lot of the ones that I know of that I'm connected with through this new community creators network, most of them are using virtual assistants. So that's where I got that idea. But if there's other communities or groups that anyone knows that are a part of that, where some collaborative efforts could be beneficial there. I think part of it, though, is we want to have the space for the room to grow. So someone who might start off part-time, we want there to be that possibility as needed to have the potential hours to be added to that. So that's a major consideration as well.
Gary has been important and very helpful in our finance planning and visioning. Gary, I wondered if you had any thoughts you might add, or if something that's running through your heart and mind.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Luke. It seems like looking ahead, our biggest challenge is really one of saying, what is a steady state level of support we need each year going forward, and planting what's needed for the year after the year we're in, so that we can build the organization in a way that is not limited as to what we feel God is calling us to do, offering us to do. We don't want finances to stand in the way of what could be done, especially with the expansive nature of the vision of ICN. So it's a dance in that particular arena, and it's one of really, we have not, as an organization, emphasized the financial requirements to really do the work that has to be done. There's been a lot of volunteer effort, which is so critical to what we need, but we also need we don't want Luke and Paul and others to be spending an excess amount of their time in what should be just simple administrative work. We want to relieve them so that they can full-time work on the vision and the organizing, the tremendous amount of details required when you have to offer all of these different we space groups and the visioning and that. If you're trying not to limit that, well, the organizational base to do that can be fairly substantial. So that's the kind of dialogue that we're having with the board, because the board, of course, would really be establishing how all this will play out in 2024, 2025 timeframe. That would be a perspective that I would say in terms of where we are.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Gary.
Gary. Gary brings a wealth of professional background and visioning, and thank you. Those are inspiring words, Gary. Thank you.
Yeah, and Gary's a member of a finance circle, and I want to give special thanks to Gene Villain, who's been a board member for a while, just stepped off, but he really helped create the map of this whole organization of those 6 areas that that I was going into, and each one of those breaks down into functions and roles on his mapping program and all the different people that are associated with that. So there is quite a degree of complexity. I didn't, of course, go into all that, but folks like Gary engaged in that and all those other various circles. The participation and engagement with everyone here is really astounding. It's amazing how much is being brought forth by the community. And then I also want to give special thanks to Christy for making it look pretty, like she does with so much of our stuff. So thanks, Christy, as well. Other questions, thoughts? Well, wonderful. This is the least mystical feast part of the whole week. Everything else that we do will be participatory, active, engaged practices that we do together in community, but really wanted to take this opportunity to let people know about what's going on in the community. Like I said, kind of the inner workings of the restaurant, the behind the scenes, and the scope of that is really extensive. I didn't put up the full map thing that Gene made, but someone was saying, oh, maybe we want to put that on there. There's kind of like oh wow, or I think they said oh shit, but there's like there's a lot here going on, and it's wonderful to celebrate in that, especially as we partake in a few little things or this or that. Some people, like I said, are engaged to small degrees just in the respace or other parts, but there's so much that Spirit's doing here that like I said, we want to honor in celebration and recognition. So thank you all so much for being a part of this as we commence the feast. Paul is going to close us with a prayer to get us going for the rest of the week. We'll be back this evening for a meditation time that will include some chanting and singing of the Aramaic Lord's Prayer. So come back for that tonight if that's your time zone, or Raina, when you wake up, if you want, or wherever you are. That'll be the next thing on the schedule. And yeah, like I said, we'll leave the room open to just kind of chat and hang out as well if you'd like to stay around for that. So, Paul.
And now may the everywhere glory of the infinite face of God light your every step. the friendship of the intimate face of God wrap you in love's arms, and the peace of the inner face of God flow from within you like rivers of living water. So in all we are and seek to do in our lives, being the loving evolution of Christianity in the world. Amen.
Amen. All right. See you all at various parts of the feast throughout the week. Much love, everybody. Like I said, stick around if you want to just hang out and chat a bit. Otherwise, see you next time.
Thank you, Luke and Paul. Blessings, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Luke. That was helpful in my understanding and my questioning to you. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
We really had to hang on and listen. It was so rich and so fast. So much good stuff. I have a question for Gary. I've often thought about why we aren't called on more to support financially. I'm guessing most people don't have an idea how much that's needed. Is that an okay question for this time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got involved in, I guess I didn't come on board in ICN until June of 2022. Joined a WeSpace group, and I went on. And what I discovered by experience was it's a mystery how the money flows in ICN. I mean, I had to do research to say, well, how much do I want to donate? And I said, well, maybe I ought to do it this way, or I ought to do it that way. And I said, I shouldn't have to do a research project to figure out what would be a fair amount to really get on board with the program when we have, a limited number of people. We have, like, at the time, it would be like 140 people. And that the finances to support that would be on the order, I don't know, like maybe, I'm just going to throw a number out, don't hold me to that, but it's something like $50 a month per participant. And well, okay, that's helpful, but we also don't want to keep anyone who wants to participate from participating. And we have another group who really have an initiative to support and be a sponsor level. So maybe able to give 3, 4, 5 times as much as an average person giving. And so it's one of trying to communicate all of that, but doing so in a relational way so that people understand what we're trying to do. Always trying to say we do not want finances to limit what God wants to do through ICM. Is that?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah,
it's a
and
very
also,
good question.
Yeah, it is. And there's, I think we've identified as well in the finance circle some organizational shadow in that area in the past, where it's like, we want people to be able to participate regardless of their financial situation, but then balancing that with the needs that we have and the capacities to grow and to offer to more people. And so yeah, holding that in conscious and relational ways. And I put on my organizational director, executive director hat this morning, but that's not my favorite garb, or my most skilled or experienced one, right? So that's where having a finance circle, right, gathering some people with that skill and experience, in addition to the board, to really help out with that, to bring that forth in more active and communicative ways, that is definitely has been an area of growth for our community, and it's been fun to see that come about. Gary, all of us on the finance circle, we always end it and we're like, wow, this had really good energy. It's like the finance committee meetings are not supposed to to feel like that sort of thing, but really bringing, there's this spirit of engagement with it that is, I think probably maybe to some extent because it's hitting that shadow, right? Because we're engaging with it, trying to be in the spirit of generosity, but there's a lot of good energy in that, and trying to come into more of what we need. So
it's like a we space group with a particular function.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of the hope for all the circles. They're like that a little bit. We call them circles, not committees. Language is important, right? The participatory, not volunteers. Because like I was saying in the talk, it's these are spiritual practices too. So we'll have various areas of growth and ways that we can keep getting better. So.
I just want to say, I love how you said that. Oh, sorry, Minta.
Oh, go ahead, Christy. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say I loved how he said a we space group with a function. I think that's really beautiful.
Mhm.
I was going to say that we're so relational in ICN, and I don't know Florence at all. So, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Florence. Hi, Florence. She just joined a We Space group this fall. So.
Hi. Okay, I wanted to ask. Sorry, let me just go ahead. Where I work, mostly we are in charge of revenue generation, and there has to be cash flow. Like, I don't know if we'll be allowed in the future to, maybe if you identify a source of financial income, I may come back to the group and ask for an assistance on how maybe we can do a proposal to come back and support the work that you're doing. But I know and I understand the importance of having a cash flow in an organization. I don't know if that's okay, but it was just my thought. Because for us, I'm in a private insurance company, and we have like monthly, quarterly, yearly target that we have to meet. But I was just thinking, if I borrow the idea and have it here, and not just specifically at where I am working, but we have an open mind, or if we identify anywhere that we can have this and have a proposal and bring it on the table, will that be acceptable? I don't know. I was just thinking, is that allowed, or maybe in the future, not now? Sorry, I just joined in.
Oh yeah, that sounds great. I think that'd be a wonderful thing for the finance circle to receive and engage and work with. And we haven't done anything like that before, but that sounds really intriguing. Yeah.
Thank you. I was just thinking, because I've been I don't know, but I get involved in so many meetings, at least you're able to identify where you can spot on where finances can come from. But I'll be coming back to ask for or seek for guidance so that it's appropriate for the organization to have this, and then with the guidance, maybe we can work through that if that's okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add also that Luke has been very instrumental in how the finance circle works and operates. And it's really been an interesting and inspiring dance for me and the others as to how that exchange goes on, constantly bringing it back to relational, constantly bringing it back to we have to really meet what the vision of the people who are part of us, what they really sense they're being called to do, and what best would support that has to be, it's not the finance circle or the board or Luke even going out and saying, well, this is what we're going to do and we're going to have a vision. And so, no, it's what is God moving in the hearts of the people participating that says, we want this to spread. We want this to spread. And to do that, what is the way we could really make that work by having a strong infrastructure that allows that to happen for where we want to go in 2024 and 2025, so that we're always ahead of the course a little bit. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what's going on. And I just want to come back to Luke, who has effectively really engaged us in the way of relationality. And I think that has a lot to do with how this is all going.
Yeah, a core fundamental of this has been that we want to operate from the consciousness that we're seeking to come into. And so what does that mean when we talk about finances? I mentioned an organizational shadow, but I think there's a general larger shadow around that with churches, with nonprofits, right? The way that we approach money, the way that we approach resources, it's really complex and complicated because it is, there's taboos and there's people are really private about that. And so, yeah, how do we do this? One, in ways that are consciously engaged, but also like, what was the other thing? I was like thinking of the one and then the other, but also in ways that, that reflect who we are, and not fall into some of those patterns or ways that that a lot of organizations do, or just we don't want to be coercive or manipulative, right? We really want to honor people, and the relational space is really that real core fundamental element of it. I mean, WeSpace, that's what we're all about, right? So it's like, how do we do this in a way that's reflective of WeSpace, that's reflective of understanding and engagement and calling to conscious participation in this area of our life, because it's also a spiritual place as well, right? There's spirit, there's energy to how we use our resources, and financial and otherwise. So it's again, with the finance circle, with all of these circles, that's the way we're trying to, even our board, it's not like a a traditional nonprofit board where we're inviting like, who has the most money, right? But we're trying to make it be a space of like a core circle of stewardship, of care, of that's kind of the hope for all the circles. So
this discussion reminds me, I think it's Jeremiah. It hadn't come to mind in a long time, but this discussion reminds me of that short phrase, look, I am doing something new. Can you not see it? And that's the sense I have, that yes, there is a new way, a more relational way to take care of the needs of the community. Can you not see it? Lord, we are seeking to see it. We are seeking to feel it.
Minta, I'd like to build on that from the point of view that what's been key is the attitude toward generosity. An attitude toward generosity which is independent of the level of generosity.
Yes.
It's, in other words, you can have the widow's mite, or you can have a more sizable donation, and the energy of the widow's mite is perhaps even more than someone who is contributing more, just in the energy of that generosity. And that's something that is really central to this working. And that's based, what you're saying, Minta, really grounds that kind of attitude, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, yes, we can see it. We are in the process of seeing it.
Yeah, I was just going to relay. We had a story a few years, actually, it's pretty early on. One of our early kind of asks for support, and on our online form, I had to put a minimum donation amount just for like they had a default, actually. No, I didn't put it. They had a default minimum donation amount. I can't remember if it was $5 or $10, just for like it was to control like spammers who, would keep donating like a cent to whatever. So, but I had someone email and they were like, oh, what, I can't, I wanted to give a tiny bit. They were retired and didn't have hardly, they're living on government assistance, and they just, I just wanted to offer something. Can you please like lower the minimum thing? And I was like, oh yeah, like of course. So like dropped it to $1 or something. But yeah, I mean, it's so important that it is the energy of how we're engaging with it, so much more than the numbers. Although we talk about on the Finance Circle a lot, we want to be in the mystical engagement and spiritual participation with it, while also honoring and definitely like engaging with the very practical, real, concrete needs at the same time. So I know I tend to want to hang out in this space more so than this space, or that's what my background is. But it's great to try to bring those things and integrate them together more and more. Yeah.
Well, it certainly makes my heart feel good, because I'm one of the ones who can't give much. And so what you're saying is takes away the guilt of not having enough.
Of course. Yeah.
And oh, how much you do give, Donnie Grace.
Yes.
That's her new name. That's my name for Donnie from day one, but oh, how much you do give.
And that's the other balancing piece here, is that there are hundreds and hundreds of hours of donated leadership, donated teachers, donated on many different levels. And those donations of time have really enabled ICN to do what it does today. And it's just now we want to support that heavy volunteer organization with an adequate financial base, so people can exercise their gifts and not get burdened down with, well, how do you do this email list, and how do you do this donating thing? Don't worry about it. That's handled. You do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, even for allowing this conversation to go on, because I think it's really important that we all are on this, have this understanding of what it is that this is all about. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you all so much. Yeah, well, it's been wonderful. Appreciate space, and see you all throughout the week. So
great.
Blessings. And welcome, Florence.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Nice to meet you all. Bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.